website strategies that I use and give you some case studies of the websites I bought and grew as well. This is sort of like a summary of, I guess, the big picture at the end of it all, because I did do this part-time. The whole time I was investing in websites, I was either running my blog business as my main enterprise, or I had a proofreading business before that, and before that I was obviously studying university. So this is something that's never been a full-time occupation for me either. As I talk, you probably kind of realize I don't like the word full-time much. For me, life is about being able to balance everything. So anything that's full-time is too much time, in my opinion. So this was something I did part-time as well. But thankfully, it's something you can do part-time and be very lucrative. So I'll show you the case studies. But that last point there, I mean, you're hearing this throughout the whole weekend. You know, websites are assets. And the reason why I highlight that for me, and I think I'll tell it to you in this next slide. Yep. So it's strange to think about now, but I never saw my first website actually as a sellable asset. And it was that card game website that I built. And I had it, because I started as a hobby, I think I never really saw it as something that could be sold. But it was actually one day in Brisbane when I was in the Queen Street Mall. I remember, it's so clear in my mind. I was walking down the street, crossing one of the main intersections, and I thought, you know, I've got this website that, A, it makes some money, and, you know, $500 to $1,000 a month in advertising income in this case. B, it pretty much runs itself, because I had people writing content for the site, and I'll explain more about the site in a moment and how it worked. So it's sort of automated, the income, and it was fairly consistent. And I was thinking someone else might actually want this, which hadn't dawned on me beforehand. So it changed my mindset about how I looked at websites going forward. And I then realized I could sell it. And it's worth pointing out, I was 21, 22. So, you know, to make the kind of money I'll talk about in a second was a big deal for me at the time.
I think the market's changed a lot, hasn't it? Because now everyone does seem to realize that websites are sellable.
Well, people in this room now certainly do. But I think you go across the street, like, you say, you know, you've got a website, I sold a website, it's still like, you sold digital nothing? Like, how's that worth something, you know? So it's a little bit strange, a little counterintuitive. So I think I told my story up to all this. So there's the final selling price. So in this case, the website, I'll explain how I sold it, because that's the most relevant lesson. Started the website myself. It started by me writing articles on a regular basis just about the card game. People play tournaments, and they write reports about how they went, and it helps other people who play the game to develop decks to play tournaments with. So it's the strategy behind the game. I wrote to begin with, and then I had some, I guess you could call them my colleagues, Magic playing colleagues. I don't know what you call them. My fellow Magic players would write.
Fellow nerds.
Yeah, well, no, we're not going there. would write some articles as well, and that's how we started. But then I made one really smart change to the site, and in hindsight I didn't know that would be such a big deal, but it certainly was. I added a forum to the website. Now, you're all familiar with forums. Anyone who doesn't know what a forum is? No? You're okay. In this case, the forum became a place where people would trade cards. So Magic actually has a very big aftermarket, so it's a collectible card game as well, and they deliberately limit the rarity of some of the cards so they increase in value. And in this case, there is a market for people, not only because of the rarity of the cards, but certain cards are more, you know, advantageous playing the card game itself, so you can win tournaments and you need certain cards. And my forum became the default marketplace, in Australia anyway, for people to buy and sell these Magic cards. It wasn't overnight, it took about a year to get to that point, but it became the de facto standard place. That combined with maybe eBay, where everyone went. And that was really amazing because my traffic increased without me adding new content. It was all created by the user base who was listing their cards. And it became a destination point, a bit of an authority site in the Magic industry in Australia. So for me, that A, mean I didn't have to work nearly as much, and that was a big benefit. And B, it made the site worth more. It made the value of the site increase without my labor increasing, which was a big deal. And when it came time to sell the site, this was the interesting thing. I had sponsors on the website who were paying me $50, $100 a month to put a banner on the site. And when I decided to sell it, I thought the logical thing to do was to go to these people and ask, are you interested in perhaps talking about buying this website? And that was the first place I went to find potential buyers. a few nibbles here and there, but no one actually committed to buying. So I started to circulate a few more feelers out there and actually put a notice in the forum that I would be possibly interested in selling the site. And one of the biggest car traders in that forum popped up and said, I'm actually interested, and can we start talking about it? And long story short, we ended up doing the deal. I was asking for about $15,000 was my price in my head. And it's interesting how I came up with that. I was so like, okay, $1,000 a month, I'd be happy to get, it's not consistent 1,000, it's between 500 and 1,000. If I can get maybe 10 to 20 times that amount, I'd be happy. It's like just pulling numbers out of the air, it's ridiculous. But I said 15,000, we negotiated, and I'd basically made about how much money I'd made in the previous year working casual jobs. So it was a big deal at the time, and my first taste of selling a website.